Transvaal moet hom beskikbaar stel, anders gaan dit Natal se bal wees. Naas Botha, kom 'n skepskop van hom. Weer eens Potevorie, Johan Roux. Kom nog 'n skepskop van Naas Botha. En hy is alreeds tevrede.
It's the man who's required to make the catch. Dupreer, Willie Schmidt nearly got hold of his leg. Olivier, Botha's got time now. And he just waits. I'm watching him. And it's a third drop goal for Naas Botha.
Naas Botha, wow. It's a real honor. It's a true honor. Did you want to do the interview in Afrikaans or English?
Doesn't matter. You can call it.
Kom ons praat 'n bietjie Afrikaans. Naas, baie dankie dat jy ja gesê het vir 'n onderhoud. My naam is Steven Pfeiffer. Ek is die founder van Oorsee. Nou, net om te verduidelik wat Oorsee is. Oorsee is 'n toep of 'n app wat gemaak is vir Suid-Afrikaners wat oorsee woon. Dit is 'n manier om hulle bymekaar te bring, want dit is baie moeilik vir iemand wat sopas oorsee getrek het om vriende te maak, om koneksie te maak en om dalk 'n bietjie hulp te kry as hulle dalk 'n bietjie advies soek of wil weet waar kan hulle 'n kar huur, waar kan hulle dit, waar kan hulle dat. En Oorsee is daar om daai gap te vul. En ons is nou al net so oor 'n so jaar en 6 maande aan die gang en what a journey. Dit gaan so goed.
Okay.
En onder andere het ons die YouTube kanaal begin en ons het begin om net met Suid-Afrikaners te praat reg oor die wêreld en te hoor hoe is dinge daar waar hulle is. Hoe het hulle hoe was die visa proses en wat se tipe advies kan hulle vir ander Suid-Afrikaners gee? En uit dit het die geleentheid gekom om bietjie meer van die bekendes te gesels. Mense wat oorsee woon, Suid-Afrikaners wat bekend is en mense wat van Suid-Afrika af oorsee gaan om te gaan toer. Al is dit nou so stand-up comedy of musiek, soos byvoorbeeld nou Dewald Wasserval en Leani May. Hulle is Dewald Wasserval bly tans in Amsterdam en Leani May gaan daar sing volgende maand saam met Bok van Blerk. En daar is so baie rugby nuus op die oomblik in die gang. Jou naam het net oor my Facebook feed gekom en ek het vir myself gesê dit sal nou regtig epic wees as ek nou dit so kan stel om net so bietjie met jou te gesels. Nie dalk direk oor rugby nie, want ek dink ek sal my naam lelik skeer as ek enigsins rugby details met jou moet praat. Maar ek is baie geïnteresseerd in die lewe na rugby. Wat doen 'n oud Springbok wat afgetree is, was wêreldbekend vir rugby? En ons gaan bietjie gesels oor al daai. Maar wat
Okay.
Ek gee dit oor aan jou, Naas Botha.
Steven, baie dankie. Op hierdie stadium is ek in Pretoria en ek is ook by die Hoërskool Eldorein. Ek is hulle direkteur van rugby. Ek is nog by Supersport. Dis nou al vir 30 jaar, so jy kan dink is 'n lang tydperk. En ek hou my besig ook met genetiese breinprofiele. Nou dit is die ding wat my op hierdie stadium die meeste fascineer, want dit is, ons bepaal eintlik maar net hoe jy natuurlik kommunikeer, hoe jy natuurlik luister en hoe jy natuurlik reageer. En dan het ons ook in die hele proses, as jy bietjie stres, ons weet, ons stel vas, ons kyk na 5 modaliteite vir argumentsonthaal. Die oog, die oor, die hand, die voet en dan die linker of regter brein. En dan bepaal ons ook as jy nou stres, watter blokkades het jy? Verloor jy byvoorbeeld jou detail in jou oog? Hoe luister jy? Luister jy emosioneel of luister jy na feite en al daai goeters? So daar's 'n hele paar goeters waarmee ons besig is op hierdie stadium, wat vir my verskriklik interessant is. Want weet 'n ou kan sien hoe mense as hulle klaar deur die proses is en die nodige, ek wil amper sê ondersteuning kry, hoe hulle net verbeter. weet, en dis op 'n opvoedkundige vlak waarvan ons praat. Dis van 'n sportvlak waarvan ons praat en dan ook in die besigheidswêreld. Redelik besig in Indië. Ek is nou al 5 jaar Indië rugby afrigter. So ons is redelik besig in Indië ook. Weet hulle is baie ingestel op hulle kinders moet ongelooflik goed doen. Want jy kan dink as 1.4 biljoen mense, so weet dis regtig the strongest survive. Weet dis daai tipe van mentaliteit. Maar wat goed is vir besigheid, jy weet, so ons kan nou nie te veel kla nie. En dan soos wat ons ook vroeër gepraat het en jy het dit ook genoem, rugby hou maar besig hoor, moet nie 'n fout maak.
Ja nee.
Weer die Springbokke is nou 2 keer na mekaar wêreldkampioen. Australië se rugby, weet nie waar hulle staan op die oomblik nie. Ons gaan in die volgende 2 weke sien hoe staan Nieu-Seeland rugby, waaraan ons baie belangstel. En dan Argentinië. Ons weet wat die 6 nasies daarbo beteken. Ons weet van die Suid-Afrikaanse spanne wat in die URC speel. So Steven, daar gaan eintlik so baie goeters aan. Ou moet baie keer moet jy mooi dink dat jy weet nie oorbetrokke probeer wees nie. Maar dat jy perspektief hou. So as ek dit vir jou so kan opstel.
Ek sal dit goed glo. Wel, ek is tans in Australië en ek kan vir jou gerusstel, ek skree nog al die pad vir die bokke. Ek is in Melbourne, so ons het nie veel rugby hierdie kant nie. Ek weet daar is 'n paar clubs locally wat rugby union doen en van my vriende wat oorgekom het, wie se kinders tieners is, hulle speel vir daai clubs. Maar dis baie moeilik om wedstryde te kry en so vir hulle. Hulle moet New South Wales toe gaan of hulle moet opgaan Queensland toe om of selfs Perth om 'n game te kry, maar dis AFL hieronder en ek wou dit gehad het. Ek wou glad nie van AFL gehou het nie. Maar my seun is nou 11 en hy het hierdie jaar vir die eerste keer AFL gespeel op so hier in die skole het hulle het nie so sport wat deel is van skool nie. Hulle doen 'n klein bietjie daarvan. Dis nie soos in Suid-Afrika nie. As jy wil sport doen, moet jy buite 'n klub join en dis waar jou kind dan die sport doen. En deur dit moet ons as ouers ook betrokke wees en so het ek die reëls geleer verstaan en ek het besef, wow, dit is eintlik 'n wonderlike game. Dit is 'n baie goed uitgedenkte game. Kyk, ek het groot geword met rugby. Dis nog steeds nie rugby nie. En ek sal altyd baie liewer wees vir rugby as iets anders. Maar ek het so 'n paar vrae voorberei wat ek gevoel het is gepas want jy het 'n so wye geskiedenis wat nie net rugby aanbetref nie, maar ook jy's 'n pionier, jy is 'n ambassadeur vir die sport, maar ook vir Suid-Afrika. Want deur die beeld wat jy voorgedra het van 'n jong ouderdom af, het jy ons in so goeie lig daar buite gesit. Dit is baie moeilik om te top. Hulle maak net nie meer mense soos jy nie. En ek sê dit nie lig geraak nie. Dit is ek haal my hoed af vir jou. So ek vra nou om verskoning as hierdie vrae jou nie justice doen nie en ek vra om verskoning as ek my Engelse woorde bietjie meng. Ek sal
geen probleem.
'n dekade uit die land uit. Rugby erfenis. Dis my eerste vraag. Naas jy word beskou as een van die beste loskakels in Suid-Afrikaanse rugby geskiedenis. Wat dink jy het jou sukses as 'n speler die meeste gevorm en hoe het jy jou ervaring bygedra tot Suid-Afrika se status as 'n rugby magtige nasie?
Steven, ek dink en ek's bietjie beskeie as 'n ou dit noem. Dit is 'n spel wat ek baie van gehou het. Ek hou nog steeds daarvan, kom ek stel dit so. Jy speel net nie meer nie. Baie belang gestel in ek dink wêreld rugby van 'n baie jong ouderdom. Ek het na skool was ek bevoorreg geweest om bietjie in Ierland te gaan speel. En ek het latere jare toe ook bietjie Amerikaanse voetbal gespeel en ook rugby gespeel in Amerika vir Dallas Harlequins. En toe het ek ook rugby gedeel op 'n stadium tussen Suid-Afrika en Italië waar ek vir die rugby klub Revigo gespeel het.
Yes.
So weet ek dink van 'n jongerige ouderdom wou ek baie graag 'n professionele sportman gewees het. En ek kan nie vir jou regtig die redes gee nie. Ek dink die rede wat ek kan gee is ek het eintlik meer van bofbal gehou as van rugby. En dit was vir my altyd die uitdaging. Maar ongelukkig na skool, toe ek Universiteit van Pretoria toe ek onderwys gaan swat. En nou ja, en toe het ek nou maar klaar gemaak en toe het rugby half deel geword van, kom ons sê, van my lewe. Ek het in die dis nou Blou Bulle, maar ek het in die ou dae het ek Noord-Transvaal Laerskole gespeel. Ek het Noord-Transvaal onder 15 gespeel. Ek het Noord-Transvaal Kruiwenweek Hoërskole gespeel, onder 20 gespeel. So ek het eintlik elke trappie wat jy moes trap, het ek getrap. En toe het ek later vir Noord-Transvaal of die Blou Bulle gespeel, sodat hulle vandag bekend staan soos almal hulle ken. En nou ja, later was ek regtig bevoorreg en ek sê dit vir jou ernstig, regtig bevoorreg om my land te verteenwoordig. In 'n moeilike tyd, ons ken die apartheidstyd, dit was 'n moeilike tyd.
Ja.
Baie min lande wou teen ons speel. Ek was gelukkig om deel te gewees het van 28 internasionale toetse. Ek kon net wel geen een gespeel het nie. En dan sou ek nie hierdie gesprek gehad het nie. Dis hoe eenvoudig dit is. Maar nou ja, dit het toe gebeur en ek moet sê, ek noem dit 'n voorreg om my land te kon teenwoordig. So dit is hoe ek daarna kyk. Ja, as 'n mens rondbeweeg, het almal geweet jy kom van Suid-Afrika af. Dit is so. En snaaks genoeg, sonder dat enigiemand dit regtig op ek wil amper sê op my drempel gelê het, het ek altyd besef dat komende van Suid-Afrika gaan jy altyd as 'n ambassadeur gesien word van jou land. Dit is maar net hoe dit werk.
100%.
En so daar's nie 'n spesifieke rede hoe ek wou 'n ambassadeur wees van my land nie. Al wat ek net geweet het is as jy oorsee is en mense weet jy kom van Suid-Afrika af, gedra jy ordentlik.
Absoluut.
Omdat jy eintlik maar 'n ambassadeur is. En dit is maar net hoe dit maar net deel geword het van my lewe. Jy weet, ek sê nou nog baie keer sê ek vir jongerige mense wat oorsee gaan, onthou waar jy vandaan kom. Weet jy mag dalk nie altyd hou van waar jy vandaan kom nie. En daar's baie redes vir baie goeders, maar onthou maar net waar jy vandaan kom, want dit bepaal ook jou karakter. Jy weet, as ek dit so kan uitdruk. So nou ja, ons stem nie altyd saam met politici nie, dit is so. Maar ek dink dis ons voorreg. Maar is ook nie altyd te sê jy moet die wêreld vertel wat jy dink nie. Ek dink nie die wêreld stel altyd regtig belang in wat jy dink nie. So ek hou baie keer maar my opinie vir myself. Weet elke ou, hoe sê hulle, elke huisie het sy kruisie, né? En ja, dit is hoe ek kan kyk. En nog steeds, as ek oorsee gaan, maak ek seker dat jy daai land se wette ek wil sê navolg.
Ja.
Kyk hoe jy jouself gedra, kyk hoe jy jouself optree, want jy maak nie saak wat nie, jy bly 'n Suid-Afrikaner, al bly jy oorsee. Weet jy sê jy sal oor 'n dekade in Australië. Nou ek kan nie sê ek kry jou jammer nie.
Wel, 6 jaar in
plekke waar
6 jaar in Australië en 4 jaar amper 7 jaar in Australië, 3 jaar in Engeland gebly. Ons het eers Engeland toe gegaan. Ek het besluit nee, dis nie vir my nie. En ek en my vrou moes toe kies tussen Kanada en Australië en ons het besluit ons wil nie van een koue plek na nog 'n koue plek gaan nie. Australië is die beter keuse. Min het ek geweet ons kom Melbourne toe. Dit kan maar net sowel Engeland gewees. Dit is maar 'n koue plek. Die winters is lank.
Maar wat ek wil sê is dit is weet elke ou en dit is wat vir my lekker is. Ek het in 'n era groot geword waar ek was bevoorreg om op 'n baie jong ouderdom Suid-Afrika verteenwoordig op die bofbalveld onder 16. So ek het baie vroeg begin oorsee gaan in my lewe. En ek was nog altyd mal daaroor. Weet ou weet nie wat môre vir jou inhou nie, maar jy kan jouself in 'n situasie vind wat wat jy dalk nie in Suid-Afrika bly nie. Jy weet, daar's soveel goedes wat rondom ons aangaan en jy weet self dat na 94 die wêreld regtig oop gegaan het vir Suid-Afrikaners. Jy weet, en Suid-Afrikaners, jy weet,
ek was 8 jaar oud. Ek onthou. Ek het Nieuwerus net so buitekant van Reinsdorp die skoolbus afgeklim en my nuwe skool begin en al wat ek wou doen was rugby speel. en ek het vir die eerste keer gesien ek, wow, hier kom ons het nou alle kleuriges wat saam met ons gaan skool gaan en ek het nie veel daarvan gedink ek gedink ja, kry. Lekker. Ek hoop hulle kan rugby speel.
ja.
Dis al wat ek oor gehoor het.
Ja.
Ja.
Ja, so dis hoekom ek sê die lewe beweeg so vinnig. En ek dink elke dag begin jy ook agterkom, maak maar seker dat jou eie huis in orde is. En moenie te veel jou neus in ander mense se sake druk nie. Elke ou het sy eie redes. Ek is nie een van daai ouens wat kommentaar lewer oor mense se besluite nie. Ek neem aan dis omdat almal altyd half 'n idee gehad het of 'n opinie gehad het oor my lewe. So ek het maar net geleer om my neus uit almal se sake te hou. En die res, Steven, moet ek vir jou sê, gaan ons aan soos wat ons moet aangaan. En ek moet sê ek geniet dit. Ek hou daarvan die manier wat ou se lewe aangaan, die 3 dogters op hulle manier aangaan met hulle lewe. Dit is lekker, jy weet, ek het nie regtig veel om oor te kla op hierdie stadium nie, weet 'n ou kan. Maar ek is nou een van daai mense wat bietjie meer positief is as 'n negatiewe mens. So ek sien altyd die lig aan die einde van die tonnel. Jy weet, dit is maar net so. Dit is hoe ek gemaak is en ek glo nie ek gaan ooit verander nie.
Ek weet ek doen en ek weet ons oorsee community gaan definitief jou nederige respons waardeer vir die tipe vraag wat ek sover gevra het. Nou jy het al klaar op nommer 2 geraak vir internasionale ervaring. Want vir my om deur oorsee te getrek het my perspektief totaal en al verander van die wêreld. Ek het iemand het eendag my gesê om oorsee te gaan is it's the cure for ignorance. En ek het besef dat in die eerste wêreldlande waartoe ons nou getrek het, gewerk het en gewoon het, is sekere goed is jou reg. Ons het 'n reg om veilig te voel in ons huise, ons het 'n reg om 'n warm bed te hê om in te slaap in die aand, ons het 'n reg om 'n bord kos vir ons kinders neer te sit. En dit het my perspektief so bietjie oor Suid-Afrika verander, maar nie noodwendig op 'n slegte manier nie. Meer op 'n hoe kan ek wat oorsee is, wat dalk in 'n beter posisie is, iets teruggee aan Suid-Afrika om te help. Al is dit as advies, dalk net bietjie meer te kan uithelp deur familie en vriende wat op daai kant is. En ek wonder altyd vir die mense wat teruggegaan het Suid-Afrika toe, wat lang jare oorsee gewerk het en oorsee gebly het. Hoe het julle perspektief, hoe het jou perspektief oor Suid-Afrika verander in die tyd wat jy byvoorbeeld in Italië gaan rugby speel het?
Kyk, dit is maar hoe jy dit ervaar. En ek is baie naby op jou bladsy. Jy weet, ek is 'n ou wat eerstens hou ek van om te reis. Veral buite die land. Ek het nie spesifieke redes nie, maar ek hou nogal daarvan. So my perspektief, weet ek dink baie keer, want onthou ons was in 81 was ons in Nieu-Seeland op 'n baie moeilike toer gewees. En daar was baie vrae gevra daai tyd aan, ek wil amper sê, minder ingeligte rugby spelers wat in die land regtig aangaan. En ek het baie keer daarna het ek gedink, miskien moes hulle daai tyd nie ons gebruik het nie, dis nie wat ek sê nie, maar ons miskien net beter ingelig het, dat jy 'n meer objektiewe opinie kon gegee het. Okay? Maar dit was nou daai tyd. En kyk in Italië, toe ou nou daar aangekom het, weet dit was ook in die 80s, so jy was nog steeds, ek wil amper sê onder daai wolk van apartheid,
Ja.
het jy gespeel. En so hier en daar het iemand daar so teen die klub se mure goed kon verf en bietjie graffiti weet, gesê jy is nie te welkom in
Ja.
Revigo nie, maar dit het my net nooit geplan nie, verstaan jy? Want ek was daar as 'n sportman en dit is hoe ek dit gesien het. En klaar het ek gedaan. Die groot ding is, en jy het dit baie mooi opgesom van ons moet liewerste kyk, waar kan ons help? Waar kan ons kyk of ons iets kan verbeter? Ek dink dit is waaroor dit moet gaan. Kan ek 'n bydrae lewer dat iemand se lewe dalk net môre, kom ons sê, interessanter is, of hy miskien net meer positief is. Nie oor Suid-Afrika soms nie, maar oor die lewe. Jy weet, en dis kom ek vir jou net nou genoem het, hoekom ons in die genetiese breinprofiele ingegaan het, want elke ou behoort sy genetiese breinprofiel eintlik te verstaan, want dit gaan jou 'n beter mens maak. Hoekom gaan dit jou 'n beter mens maak? En ek sê hier om 'n produk te verkoop nie, ek wil net vir jou reguit sê, weet as ek weet hoe jy na my gaan luister, vir argumentsontaal, jy wil net feite hoor, dan gaan ek mos nou net met jou feite praat. As ek weet jy wil na stories luister, dan gaan ek met jou so kommunikeer. Ek is 'n ou wat net wil feite hoor. So as jy nie met my feite praat nie, dan gaan ek jy dalk in die rede val. En dan gaan jy dink, "Jesus, wat so ongeskikte mense is hierdie?" Dis nie ek is ongeskik nie. Dit is maar net hoe ek normaalweg optree. Dit is hoe ek wil amper sê hoe ek gebore is, weet, en dit is hoekom dit vir my so lekker is om daaroor te praat, want dit is waaroor die lewe moet gaan. Verstaan jouself beter.
Ek is mal
Want
oor.
jy jouself beter verstaan, dan gaan jy jou vrou beter verstaan, sy gaan jou beter verstaan, jou kinders gaan mekaar beter verstaan, hulle gaan verstaan hoe pa en ma operate en ma en pa gaan verstaan hoe hulle operate, en dit is tog waaroor dit moet gaan. En dis hoekom ek so, ek wil amper sê passievol is oor wat 'n mens doen op hierdie stadium. Maar jy weet, my hele houding is, ek het op 'n vroeërige ouderdom, het ek nogal gedink, Steven, ek is belangrik. En ek bedoel dit nou nie in die lelikes nie. Ek bedoel, jy speel dan vir Suid-Afrika rugby, weet.
Jy was die
mense moet na jou
David
luister.
Beckham van Suid-Afrika. Ek meen, come on, jy kan daarom so 'n bietjie belangrik gewees. Dis fine.
Nee, en ek het baie vinnig agtergekom, weet jy wat? Ek is 'n rugby speler. Bepaal jou by dit wat jy doen. Soos ek vir jou vroeër gesê het, hou jou neus uit ander mense se sake uit. En ek dink die belangrikheid wat ek vir jou wil sê is, ek wou, of ek het gedink, ons kan die wêreld verander. En ek het eenoggend wakker geword en toe kom ek agter, jy gaan niks verander nie. Jy weet, jy is maar net deel van die wêreld. En nou ja, en daar het ek heeltemal ander, ek wil amper sê, oorsig, opinie, jy kan noem dit wat jy wil, perspektief vir myself gestel en gesê, luister, jy gaan nie die wêreld verander nie, okay? So, hou op om te probeer. Jy weet, daar is net te veel goeters. Jy weet, as ek nou, as jy vir my vra, wat sal jy van hou? Dan sal ek vir jou sê, al wat ek van sal hou is, as ek weet, daar's nie iemand wat vandag honger is.
Ja.
Daar's iemand wat vanaand lekker warm slaap. In my situasie, nou ja, dis nou 'n bietjie tong in die kies hierdie. Almal hou nie van my, omdat ek vir 'n sekere provinsie gespeel het en jy het 'n ander provinsie ondersteun. Nou, ek verwag nie jy moet nou ewe skielik van my hou nie. Jy weet, ek hou nogal daarvan as mense nie van my hou nie. Want dit hou my besig.
Ja.
Maar dit pla my nie, as ek dit vir jou so kan uitdruk. Dit pla my nie, weet. 'n ander ou se opinie is presies wat dit is. Dis sy opinie. Maar sy opinie het nie 'n impak op my lewe nie. Weet, hy mag dink hy het 'n impak op my lewe. Ek laat dit net nie toe nie. Jy verstaan? So, ek wil amper sê jy speel so rond om seker te maak wat wil ek eintlik hê op die ouende? Ek wil 'n gelukkige familielewe hê. Dis al waarna ek belangstel. Klaar, uitgedaan. En ek wil môre opstaan en ek wil so goed voel soos wat ek vandag voel. En oor 2 dae wil ek presies dieselfde. Natuurlik het ons ups en downs. Ons is mos nou nie, ons is mense. Weet, en ek sit nou byvoorbeeld, ons was 'n baie 'n klein familietjie. Dit was ek, my ma, my pa en my broer. Nou ek het my pa al verloor 26 jaar terug. Ek het my ma verloor 2 jaar terug. My broer verloor omtrent 4, 5 jaar terug.
Jammer om te hoor.
So ek's alleen. Ja, so ek's alleen. So wat het ek nou? Nou het ek net my direkte familie rondom my. En dis wat ek dis vir my die belangrikste. Dit is hoe ek regtig daarna kyk. En ek bedoel dit nie lelik nie. As iemand ek het genoeg my kant gebring met al hierdie verskillende, ek sal dit so uitdruk, hierdie charities, Reach for a Dream. Ek het my kant gebring waar ek ook al kon. Weet, kinders gaan besoek in hospitale, ek het by ou mense gaan kuier, want ten minste die ou mense het van my gehou, jy weet, so ek het lekker daar by die ouete huise gaan kuier, lekker koffie gedrink en bietjie koek saam met hulle geëet en bietjie gekuier. So ek dink ek het my kant gebring in daai perspektief.
Dis baie goed.
En waar ek vandag is,
verskoon my.
waar ek vandag is my nee, geen probleem. En waar ek vandag is, gaan dit oor my familie. Ja, uiteindelik.
Presies. En ek wil dit endorse deur die werk wat jy gedoen het vir kinders. Nie net soos wat jy nou genoem het, maar ook in sport is baie goed gedokumenteer online. Enigiemand kan dit gaan opsoek. Dit is en dis weer eens waar woorde soos pionier, ambassadeur, daai tipe woorde in my kop inkom en ek wens en ek bid dat meer mense wat ek sê bevoordeeld is, maar wat daai tipe verantwoordelikheid in hulle lewens het, dat hulle dit sal gebruik om mense te kan help soos wat jy gedoen het. En op die einde van die dag, soos mens ouer raak, moet jy 'n bietjie dit jou grense bietjie nader bring na jou toe, jou boundaries moet jy in plek sit en jy moet na jou familie omsien. Maar ekskuus, ek wil net noem, hierdie is nou nie net my onderhoud nie. Onder andere is hier nog 'n Suid-Afrikaner wat wel bekend is in Australië en toe sy hoor ek gaan met jou 'n bietjie gesels, het sy groot gevra, asseblief gevra, sy het jou jare terug actually ontmoet. Sy het 'n foto saam met jou as 'n klein dogtertjie en sy het 'n paar vrae voorberei wat sy ook baie graag vir jou sal vra. Sy gaan oor 'n minuut of 2 by ons aansluit. So tot dan het ek nog een vraag om van my kant af wat ek graag wil vra. En hierdie het niks met rugby te doen nie. Jy is baie lief vir klavierspeel. Sê my die internet lieg of is dit die waar? Is dit die waarheid? En soos ek het verstaan, is jy baie goed.
Nee. Ek het vir 10 jaar van standaard 1 tot matriek het ek klavier geneem.
Reg.
Okay. Maar meer klassiek. So jy oefen jou gaai af. Okay. Dis een van daai. Ek sien 'n ou wat op gehoor kan speel nie. Ek dink ek sou vandag nog, ons lag baie daaroor, want onthou in my dae was seentjies nie veronderstel om klavier te speel.
Dis waar.
So, dit is maar net hoe dit was. Jy weet, maar ons het, ek en my broer, maar ek dink as daar nie vir die teorie was, weet, in teorie is maar deel van die hele pakket, weet. Dink ek sou baie liewer gewees het vir klavier, maar ek moet eerlik wees, toe ek klaar is in matriek, die dag wat ek toe klaar maak. En Steven, en ek's eerlik met jou, ou is net, ek wil amper sê, baie keer jy's net stupid, okay? En ek's maar een van daai ouens. Jy's maar net stupid. Jy maak net stupid besluit op 'n verkeerde tyd en dan dink jy, dis nou 'n fantastiese besluit, maar dis eintlik bietjie belaglik. En toe het ek net besluit, okay, ek het my 10 jaar kant gebring. En ek het nog nooit weer 'n klavier gevat nie.
Is dit waar?
En hoe belaglik is dit? Ja,
Dit
want onthou ek sê ek bring jou terug van onthou jy was nie veronderstel om klavier te speel nie. En ek
yes.
het. En die oefening en daai goed het my nooit geplan nie. Die teorie het my klein bietjie geplan.
Ja.
En die tannie wat ons gehelp het, sy was bietjie kwaai. Jy weet, bietjie kwaai tannie. So ek dink as ek dalk 'n rustiger tannie gehad het wat verstaan het, ek wil sport speel. Verstaan jy? Ek wil bofbal speel, ek het bofbal gespeel, ek het sagtebal gespeel, ek het tennis gedoen, ek het geswem, ek het rugby gespeel, ek het cricket gespeel, ek het jy noem dit. Ek het volleybal gespeel, ek het omtrent alles gedoen. Ek was nooit goed in basketbal nie, maar Suid-Afrika op daai stadium het amper nie basketbal gehad nie.
Was
So
basketbal
ek wou dit.
ja, basketbal is baie groot hier,
So,
hier in Victoria. Is nogal
ja,
is 'n groot
nee, ek
sport.
weet ja, nee, ek het nou gesien met die Olimpiese spele. Hoe die Australiese spanne gespeel het. So, weet en ek dink ek was net dom om te besluit nooit weer. Weet dit is belaglik. Weet my broer het bietjie afgaan maar okay, hy het 'n predikant geword. So jy weet jy moet daarom kan bietjie sing en bietjie speel in die in die kerk. So hy het aangegaan met dit, maar ek het nie. Maar ek dink net dit was net 'n dom besluit, maar weet op daai stadium van jou lewe, jy's 17 jaar oud, wat weet jy? Jy weet, jy
Ja.
dink jy's groot meneer en plaaslik ek maar net aangegaan het. Maar nou ja, maar laat ek goed is, nee. Dat ek probeer het, ja. Dat ek probeer het om bietjie in die koor te sing, was meer 'n onderwyser wat gevoel het ek moet bietjie my kant bring op die kultuur. So ek het dit ook gedoen. Nie dat ek 'n stem het om te sing nie. Maar nou ek het dit ook bietjie geprobeer. So ek dink op die ou ende kan 'n ou terugkyk en sê, weet jy wat? Jy het jou kant gebring. Jy weet nie altyd so suksesvol soos wat jy sou gehoop het nie, maar dis hoekom ek sê daar's ander mense.
Ja.
En dis 'n ding wat my eintlik gedryf het met hierdie genetiese breiprofiele, want ek wil verstaan, Steven, hoekom is jy beter as ek? Argumente onthou. Weet ons albei is fiks, ons albei is sterk, ons albei is vinnig. Maar hoekom is jy beter as ek? Ek is 'n ou ek's net mal oor talent. En dit sluit enigiemand in. Jy weet as jy vat in die musiekbedryf. Weet ek het nou 2 van sy konserte in my lewe bygewoon, 'n tipe van nie 'n tipe, 'n Neil Diamond vir argumente onthou. Okay?
Yes.
Dit is net ongelooflik. Dis ongelooflik om 'n ou so te sien. En ek het een van sy konserte gaan bywoon wat ongelooflik was.
Ja.
Dat weet hy het ek wil amper sê as die orkes wat hom help verdwyn het. Dan sit hy daar alleen. En hy sit op die verhoog en hy sing en jy kan nie glo hoe mooi dit is nie. Jy kan nie glo nie. En dit is talent. Jy weet en dan praat jy van kyk ons is nou net deur die Olimpiese spele. Kyk na al daai talent. Kyk na die swemmers, kyk na die basketbalspelers, kyk na die sprinters. En so kan jy aangaan. En ek sien ons het 'n dokter hier wat ons nou hierso
sy
vergesel.
Sy seker net so slim soos jy, Shamani Naasbotha. He needs no introduction. Before I hand him over to you for because I know you're going to really drill him. You think this was the interview, Naas? No, the interview is just getting started. Op daai noot wat jy gepraat het van jy wil weet hoekom is ek beter as jy. Nou dis nou ons praat nou nie van ek nie, ek praat as 'n metafoor.
Ja.
Daar was so ou op skool. Soos wat jy sê jy het rugby gespeel, jy het baseball gespeel en al daai sporte was jy baie goed in. Ons het so ou gehad, Marius Venter. Wow. Hy was Kruiwenweek top vir rugby. Hy was alles, cricket het hy so goed gedoen. Al die meisies natuurlik. Dit was net ons het daai selfe vrae gevra die hele tyd. Hoe doen hy dit? En ek het Kruiwenweek gehaal. Ek dink ek het 'n C-span of iets gehaal vir Kruiwenweek, maar toe teen daai tyd dit was maar moeilik vir of as jy 'n sekere gewas was om verder te gaan want hulle moes toe 'n bietjie dinge begin herformeer en ek het toe maar toe nie opgegee op die droom nie, maar net teruggegaan skool toe en daar eerder op my akademies gefokus. Maar ja, dit was net so maklik vir ouens soos Marius. En is dit, en is ek reg as ek vra, is dit die tipe navorsing wat jy doen?
Kyk, die ding is net ek hou daarvan om te probeer vasstel
Ja.
wat is die regte verskil. En ek is nie akademies georiënteerd soos dokters wat in die wêrelde spesialiseer en al daai. Dis nie waarvan ek praat nie. Al wat ek sê is ek's net gefassineer want almal is goed, maar baie ouens is maar net beter as ander ouens. En dit fascineer my. Hoekom is iemand beter? En ek dink op die ouende deur dit wat ons doen, begin ons bietjie beter, ek begin verseker, beter verstaan. Hoekom sekere mense maar net beter is as ander.
En jy sal sê is dit meer in mentally as wat dit fisies is?
Kyk, ek dink dit was al die jare was die fisiese aspek, die talent aspek.
Ja.
Het 'n baie groot rol gespeel. Maar ek dink ons het aanbeweeg van talent af. Ons het begin agterkom jy kan al die talent in die wêreld hê. As jy geen dissipline het nie,
Ja.
gaan dit jou niks beteken nie. As jy nie selfmotivering het nie, gaan dit jou niks help nie. As jy nie ek het nou geluister na baie van die Olimpiese onderhoude, want 'n ou leer elke dag iets en iets nuuts. En toe kry ek 'n nuwe woord wat my gefassineer het. Obsession. En dit het my nogal gefassineer. You need to be obsessed about something. Dis nie te sê jy moet crazy gaan nie. Dis nie wat ek sê nie. Want ek sê altyd as jy iets wil doen, moet jy eers daarvan hou. Dis een. Dan tweede sê ek, ten minste moet jy die reëls ken. Daar's te veel ouens wat goed doen, maar hulle ken nie die reëls nie. So ken jou reëls. Maar as jy daarvan hou en jy ken die reëls, nou kom dedication, discipline, self-motivation, motivation, self-respect en dan ons kan, maar ek sê as sielkundige nie, okay, ek is 'n onderwyser.
Whole package.
Op daai noot, Shamani, I'm handing over to you. I need to literally rearrange my brain to switch from Afrikaans to English, so I'm going to step into the shadows a little bit. Nas, it's been a real pleasure. We're gonna just do a bit of an exit when Shamani has asked you a couple of questions.
That's fine.
Hi Nas, ek sal dan net in Afrikaans hallo sê, hoe gaan dit?
Goed, dankie. Kan ek glo nie.
This mooi. Yes, you won't remember me at all because I'm one of those random people that are going to say to you, I actually met you when I was about 8 or 9 years old in the late 80s. And my parents, we were on a flight between, I think, Pretoria and Cape Town once, and you were on the same flight. And I got to meet my idol at that point because I was a fierce Northern Transvaal supporter. And you were on the plane and I sat on your lap and we took a photo and I looked at that photo for years to come after that. So it's a real pleasure to actually meet you finally again, although we're now in very different countries, as you can see. This is not quite where I'm at. I'm in Australia, but I'm not in Sydney. I'm in the Gold Coast and you're in Bloemfontein now, I understand.
Okay. No, I was in Bloemfontein till November last year. We spent 5 years in Bloemfontein and we moved back to Pretoria. And, as they say, home is home. And for me, Pretoria is home, to be honest. I love it in Pretoria. It's a nice place. But we also extremely open-minded. A place is what you make of it. That's as simple as that. So I can actually live anywhere, to be honest. But I love Pretoria. I love the weather, especially in winter. When you wake up, it's blue skies. Next day is blue skies. Sometimes a little bit cooler than normal. We had quite a little bit of a cool winter, to be honest. But the last couple of days has been actually brilliant.
That's good. Yeah, no, Pretoria is, I guess, where you spent most of your life and, of course, where you spent the peak of your career. Unless if you think now is the peak of your career, because some people, prefer the later stages in life where they don't physically expend that kind of energy anymore, where you're more content with who you are in life and what you've reached, and you can now spend time, as you were saying earlier to Stephen, just researching and looking into things that fascinate you and have that time to be able to do it?
See, the thing is, I think not too emotional about things. Sometimes, it's not a good thing, to be honest. I just take each day as it comes. I'm not getting too over emotional about things. And sometimes, in a family life, I need to be careful. But I think it's because of being in the media for quite a long time. You build that wall around you, and you just make sure nobody gets through it, and that's the end of it. And and I think that was sort of my survival sort of way of looking at it. Keep the people on the outside. Nick Ballard actually, one day in studio, he gave me some really, really good advice. He says, you know what? If you don't say anything, you don't need to explain anything. And I thought, how true is that?
Yes.
And that's why I'm hardly in the media. I'm not anti-media. That's nonsense, but they do their job, and that's the way it is. They need to write about when I played. They need to write about us, and I see new guys coming up on let's say in the limelight, and they write about them, and they deserve that, to be honest. That's the way I look at it. But I'm glad I'm beyond that, to be honest. I like the way where I am at the moment. I'm nice and relaxed, not too worried about too many things. If somebody gives me a little bit of a hard time, to be honest, I think about it for 5 minutes, get a little bit, oh, okay. Then you think about it, and then you think, you know what? If I spend 2 minutes more on this, it's actually wasting my time,
Exactly.
and then I just move on. And that, yeah, and then just move on, and don't spend time on something that's non-essential, if I can put it that way. And that's just, but I say it's got its advantages, but it's also sometimes, if I look at family, I think sometimes I'm a little bit too unemotional. I think sometimes you just need to be a little bit careful that you don't, you're not too hard on yourself or anybody else. And I think I mellowed quite a bit, and I love challenges, to be honest. We had a couple of challenges this week now because we're playing in a rugby final on the weekend. Okay, the first team.
Yes.
That I'm were involved with at school. Okay, and we had quite a couple of challenges, and I just love it because it makes sure that your brain keeps being extremely creative, because it's not a clear cut black and white thing. You need to be a little bit, I think outside the box, if I can put it that way. So I just love things like that. I love challenges. I love people, put something in front of you and you think, okay, how am I ever going to get through this? And then 10 minutes later, I've got about 50 solutions for you. Not always the best, but it's half a solution.
Yes, yeah. And talking about challenges, you obviously had lots of South African rugby challenges back in your day, but there was a time when you went to the States to go and play for them for how long was that for? Was that for a year?
I went in 83. I went 82. I actually went quietly out of the country to do a little bit of a kicking trial for a couple of American football teams. And then the day in Dallas, I actually kicked quite nicely. And then, I got invited to the training camp for the Dallas Cowboys. played in a couple of pre-season games. But I was also, to be just honest about it, I was up against the best kicker at that stage in the league. So it was, I was always under pressure that, you're not really going to outplay the best guy in the kicking department at that stage. And then I hang around in Dallas. Then I played for Dallas Harlequins Rugby. We actually won the national championship that year. I think it's the only time Dallas Harlequins won the championship. So at least I contributed to that. But they had a summer league, okay, and San Antonio Gunslingers was in. It's like, I want to say it's a little bit like they. I don't think, and I might not be correct now, okay, but I don't think they wanted to be an opposition for the NFL, because I think that would have been totally impossible. But I went out and I kicked for them, and I think I should have actually. They offered me a contract, and I think I should have signed that contract. But if I did sign that contract, I don't think we would have had this chat today, because I would have
And I
still
would have
be
sat on your
in
lap.
America.
That's right.
Yeah, precisely. So, but I still believe, because the interesting thing is, and I'm trying to put it in perspective so you can understand. I put myself actually in a very difficult scenario. Okay. I had no background. I had no 4 years of college in American football, had a CV build up, success rate of this and that and whatever. And to be honest, the first preseason game I played for the Cowboys against the LA Rams in Los Angeles was the first game I also saw live.
Yeah.
So you can imagine. Imagine you playing whatever sport you played, and you play against another country, and that's the first game you also see live. So it wasn't just clear cut and all roses and whatever. No, it was difficult, and it's more mental than anything else.
So would you suggest that's maybe a good thing for young sports players to challenge themselves to do something like that and go and experience another country to try their sport? And because it pushes you as a person to be brave and to believe in something and try it, and then go back if you want to go back. What are the advantages of trying sport in another country, I guess? Yeah,
but I think I was quite fortunate to be allowed back into rugby, because at that stage I was expelled out of rugby, because American football was a professional sport and rugby was an amateur sport. So I was expelled. So I was very fortunate that in '95, then there's World Rugby decided, okay, I'm allowed back. Okay. If they decided then that I wasn't allowed back, then I think I would have gone back to America and just, worked my way up, and that's the end of it. So it's a little bit of, I think I was quite fortunate that I was allowed back into rugby. And I loved it at the end, but to be honest, I look back at it now and I just look at my life and say, at one stage I was a rugby player. I hate the word celebrity. I think that's an overused word, to be honest. I was just a rugby player, same as thousands and thousands of other rugby players. I was fortunate enough, as I mentioned to Stephen, to play for my country.
Yeah.
And in my time, I really played with some fantastic talent that just never had that opportunity to represent their country because of the political situation,
Yeah.
So you need to keep all this, I want to say, all this in mind, and then actually just realize, I was extremely fortunate to get the break to play for my country, to tour New Zealand. I think as a rugby player, if there's one country I would love to play, tour, was New Zealand, and I was fortunate to do that. Not under the best circumstances, but that's fine. It didn't even play a part I think I was just happy that we toured New Zealand. And then I came over working then for SuperSport and working on the Tri-Nations then. And we were in Sydney, and the guy said, "Oh, we've got a kicking competition there on the Friday." I think on Fridays they always had like the old All Blacks playing the old Aussies and whatever. And they had a kicking competition. A guy from Rugby League, myself, and a couple of other guys. And I haven't done anything really rugby-wise then because I was retired. And I said, okay, if you can find me a pair of boots, I would actually like to be part of it. And they had quite a little bit of a nice prize money, to be honest. But as I arrived, I realized, oh, I don't know what's going on here. Okay. So I thought, okay, let me get into the bar. And I'm not really a drinker at all. Okay. It's not like I'm anti-alcohol. It's just not, a big part of my life. So I went into the bar, I had a quick 2 beers, and then I won the kicking competition. So I thought, okay, but I never tried that again. But that was just good fun, So,
Right.
I was fortunate enough to be part of, been through Australia, put it that way. Went to the Opera House just to have a look and see how it looks and whatever. So, but I never actually toured. Yeah. I never toured Australia. I was only in Sydney, never to the Gold Coast, to Brisbane, never, really in Perth. You just land and you move on. Of course, I was on my way. The first time I was working Tri-Nations actually in New Zealand. So I was actually on my way to New Zealand. And then there's a little stint in Australia. But, I still, on a regular basis, have contact with David Campese. Nick Farr-Jones was one of my favorite rugby players, Roger Gould. So, there's some really, Australia, I feel for them today, to be honest. I really feel for them because they had amazing rugby players. And I just don't see it at the moment. So I feel a little bit for them.
Yeah. Well,
because I don't know where their MVP is.
I'm obviously South African, as Afrikaans as you get. I've been here 20 years. I've got 3 sons, and I'm sad to say, but they're not playing rugby. They're actually playing soccer. But my husband grew up, Pretoria, was also a kicker for his team, also played fly half. And when he was a young boy at school, very Afrikaans, Groblersdal. I don't know, you'll know Groblersdal.
Oh, yeah, Groblersdal, yeah. Ben Viljoen, I think.
Yes, that's right.
Exactly. High school in Ben Viljoen. Yeah.
That's where he went.
Yeah.
And as the academic prize, the book prize that you get at the end of the year, one of the prizes he got was How to Skop with Naas, I think was the little book called. And he kept that book and he read it from side to side and from cover to cover. And he still uses the tips that was in there from the way that you kick and what you taught to teach our boys even now how to play soccer, because the same principle applies on kicking the ball.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
So do you still kick?
But it's, I still do a little bit, as I always say, when we have like a captain's run, like we will have this afternoon, I normally take the kickoffs because, I'm still quite fortunate to kick it where I actually want to kick it. And if you put somebody else there and you say, kick to that guy, then it goes to somebody else, and then it's really wasting my time. So, I take a little bit control there. But now, in general, it's good that they play soccer because it's the Socceroos. I think they actually did quite well.
They did good in the
last World Cup. Yeah, I think they did. They're quite well, and I see New Zealand's also a little bit on the soccer trail at the moment. So it's good. It's good to see the game growing.
Soccer is picking up significantly here in Australia. I've also got a little girl, she's 5, and she's also starting to play soccer. But we're going to watch the Socceroos live in the Gold Coast. They're playing here on the 5th of September. They're doing their first World Cup qualifier, so we're all very excited to go and watch them play. But I have to ask you, as I'm a mum with 3 boys. You're a dad, well, and a little girl, but you're a dad with 3 girls. Did it take you some time to get over the idea that you're not going to have a soccer kicking boy following in a football rugby kicking boy following in your rugby boots one day, or did one of your daughters play rugby?
No, nobody played. I'll just tell you quickly. My wife at one stage said no, she wanted to play rugby because ladies rugby started in South Africa.
Yeah, Karen was very strong, fierce athlete. I know.
yeah, and because of her speed and this and that, and I said, okay, if you want to play rugby, you play like me. You don't touch anybody and nobody touches you. If you can do that, you can play. So that never happened, luckily. The 2 girls, the little one and the middle one, they were extremely good in field hockey. And I know that's one of your stronger sports in Australia at the moment. But they only played till when they finish school, and then they stop. And that's still the thing that fascinates me, and that's why I'm a little bit. I think that's where I go a little bit against the stream. I say teach kids at school level to win something.
Yeah.
And then people say no. Participation is far more important. And I say, I follow. But think about this. After school, 99% of kids don't play sport anymore. And I say, think about this. In your 20-year reunion, you go back to your school. What do you talk about? Oh, what do you do now? No, I do this. Oh, okay. And you? No, I do that. Okay. So what else do you talk about? You win something at school. You win the Admin Cup, like in the old days. In rugby, or you win a championship, or you win the IPTs in hockey, or whatever, and you get to your friends that was part of that whole sequence of events. You'll talk the whole night about that.
Yeah.
And I know parents don't want to hear this because they say no, participation. I say no, participation is great. But let him try and win something, because that is like a gold medal in the Olympics.
Absolutely.
Nobody can ever take that away from you. And I'm not only talking sport. We talked about the piano a little bit earlier. If you done something brilliantly there, or you in the singing, or you in culture, or whatever, it's not about only sport. But I think we need to, I want to say, expose our kids a little bit to pressure and let them work for something, because what you don't, or what I always say to parents, what you don't realize, that is something that nobody can ever take away from you. I take my wife that went to the 92 Olympics in Barcelona. Nobody can ever take that away.
Yeah,
doesn't matter how you look at it.
That's right. And that's a good,
and that's why I say,
yeah, no, and that's a good point, because what I also want to ask you, it's a good segue into the next question, is for those parents who are not too scared of letting their children learn about competition, and who notice that some of their child might have a talent in a certain sport, doesn't matter which sport. How would you suggest, what is the best way for a parent to find that balance between helping and pushing their child to achieve the greatest heights, but then not push them too hard so that they fall off the other end and go, now I don't want to do the sport anymore? Because that's a really fine balance for parents to try and do, to help the kids and encourage them and let them push them in a little bit, but then not let them lose that love for sport and then go out at the big. Because being South African, as you will know, we are brought up that, the fittest will survive, and you just got to keep going up at the top. And if you don't reach the highest heights, and so you work so hard at everything. but there is that line that fine line where you might just push it too far. What did you suggest? What is a good approach to do that?
It's the easiest answer ever, and your question is so valid, and it's extremely important to look at a objective opinion regarding this. Winning doesn't mean you must play for the A team or the first team. You can win in the second team, you can win in the third team, you can win in a C team. It's got nothing to do with A and first teams. I think that's where parents firstly make the mistake. Okay, my kid must be in the A team. What? He can be in the B team. He can win the league in the B team. That is as important as winning in an A. That's one. Okay. Secondly, a lot of parents that didn't really make it believe they must go through their kids to actually achieve what they wanted to achieve. Okay, we need to be extremely careful for that. Okay, so there's simple advices, and that's what I got, and I think that's why we're having this chat. Okay, I just got support. That's it. Okay, nothing else. No pressure, no pushing. You have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do that, you have to eat this, you have to. That's all I want to say. That's all nonsense. Okay, just be a supporter.
Yeah,
I'll give you a great example, and I use it on a number of occasions. I played 8 o'clock in the morning in Pretoria for my high school under 15, under 14 and 15. And then I was also then fortunate enough to play for South Africa under 16 baseball. And we had 2 overseas tours, okay? Little League World Championships, okay? And I would play, we'll start at 8, I'll finish at 8:45. My dad will put me in the car, drive down to Durban, it's 6 hours, to train on the Saturday afternoon in Durban, train Sunday morning, and then drive back. That's support. That's what parents need to understand. They're just there to support. If you're the coach and I'm the parent, I must stay away from you. Because you do your job, you know how to coach.
Yeah.
I'm a parent. What I do find, and because we can easily talk about this now because of the school, my involvement with Eldorraine and the school, is we have parents coming to tell us how to coach.
Yeah.
And then I say, okay, let's just get a fair deal. You go and coach and I'll go and sit down.
I'll parent your kid.
Simple as that. No, as simple as that. Or you let me coach and you go and sit down.
Yeah.
But what I want from you is tomorrow, if we train at 3, have him there at 3. Discipline, sport brings discipline to the table. Okay. And there's a lot of things that sport actually bring to the table. So we must never overlook that.
Yeah.
But it's easy. But I think parents feel, and every parent in his own right must believe his kid is the best.
Yeah.
But what is the best? That's the question.
Yeah.
You can be absolutely playing for the 3rd team and you do your best.
Yes.
Now, for me, that's good enough.
Yeah. We always say to our kids,
if you understand where I'm coming from, that you just, as long as you deliver, doesn't matter for which team you play, just do your best. Because at the end, there's only 15 guys that's going to play next week or start next week against the All Blacks. We're 60 million people. They only can pick 15 guys. If Rassie could pick 45 guys, he would do that. But life doesn't work like that.
Yes.
It's simple. There's only 15 guys. In hockey, there's only 11. In netball, there's only 7.
Yes.
Realize that. And if your kid has the ability to maybe one day represent their country, all you have to do is support, nothing else. But you know, you've got parents that want to be coaches, they want to be this, they want to be trainers, they want to be a psychologist, they want to be everything. And I say, please just, they should play. You take in South Africa, you know, and I've moved around a little bit with the primary schools. Now that, you know, it's age, what, 6 till about 13.
Yes.
And the pressure the parents put on the kids, and the teachers and the coaches putting the pressure on the kids to perform. And I say, hey, at that age, you must still play in the park. That's what you should do. You know, but life changed quite a bit since I was a child, to be honest. It's a different ballgame, and we've got to adapt, but don't go overboard. And unfortunately, I must say, some people just really go overboard, and it's to the detrimental of their own kids.
Yes, it is sad, but it's really hard as a parent, because you feel that you want to help your child and you can see the possibilities for them, but then, you know, sometimes helping is helping too much. In your view, it's helping them enough or not enough, and for them, it's just too much. So, yes, it will always be that struggle to find that correct balance.
Absolutely.
But as long as you keep the word, as you said earlier, keep the passion alive. And to keep the passion alive, you should not make it a chore. As soon as something becomes a chore, then the passion goes out the back door. So I think that's what we're trying to do with our 3 littlies. They're still fairly young, so hopefully we can keep them interested. And all they want to do at the moment still is just kick ball. Wherever we go, they can't sit still. They just want to have the ball on the foot. So that's good. I have 3 more sort of shorter questions for you. It's sort of just like a fast answer question. I don't want you to think too long or hard about it. And it's just for a bit of fun. So we'll see. If you had to choose one country to play for, would you play for Australia or England?
No, I won't play for either.
You have to choose one.
Well, I have to.
Yes.
Okay, as long as I can have David compete on my side, I'll play for Australia.
Deal, we'll organise him. Second question, kangaroo biltong or springbok biltong?
Springbok biltong, come on, let's be fair now.
You know that we do get kangaroo biltong, don't you?
Yeah, I do. No, I do. But it's quite jumpy.
It is indeed. Skippy. And then the last question, if you had to pick one sport only, would you play rugby league or Australian Football League, AFL?
No, I have Australia, the AFL.
AFL, because that's
Aussie rules.
Yes.
Yeah, Aussie rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would rather like that, because that would actually allow me to use my ability with the kicking boot instead of trying to tackle somebody that somebody needs to take him to hospital.
And maybe Karen can participate with you in that one.
Yeah. I'm not going to tackle anybody. I'm not going to tackle anybody that will go to hospital. So let's forget that one.
It's good. Yeah, I was wondering how you would answer it, but it's spot on, because most people would think rugby league because it's so close to rugby union being rugby, but it's actually quite different if you're kicking, because in rugby league there's not much kicking happening, but in Australian football, Aussie rules, there's a lot more kicking happening.
Yeah.
We actually
absolutely
touched on this topic earlier, because my son played AFL for the first time this year, and I told Nas, I actually think it's a beautiful game. It is a really well thought out game. My first impression was, well, what are they doing? They're marking the whole time. They're offside all the time. I won't even touch on league, because watching rugby league is really frustrating for me, because I grew up with Union. But I have to give it to the AFL. I have to give it to Aussie Rules Rugby. After starting to understand the game, it's probably my second favorite sport after rugby union, of course.
It's really good fun to watch. But the important part of that, Stephen, is to go and watch it live, to watch a live game of Aussie Rules. Because if you watch it on the telly, you only see the bit that they focus on, but there's so much more happening on the field when you watch Aussie Rules, because the ball is on that side, but there is action and there's action, and it's really very fascinating to watch.
There's
and it's a massive field.
The thing is, what I realized about it, the difference is you need to work a lot harder without the ball because you need to get into space. Because I need to kick it or pass it for you in space. Where rugby union and rugby league is totally different. You know, you try and bash somebody and you know get over the advantage line by running over somebody. You're trying to create space, but there's not enough space. Where Aussie rules, you know, it's the most important is for the guy receiving the ball needs to get himself into an open space where he can actually handle the ball without any pressure. So that's the thing that I love about Aussie rules is you work a lot harder without the ball. Where in rugby you actually work quite a bit hard when you have the ball. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah, true, very true. And Nas, whenever you're ready to come to Australia to come and meet up, I'll organize David Campese and we'll have him Aussie rules kick around with him. How about that?
That sounds extremely great. Thank you.
I remember Campese when he used to run. He used to do those huge strides down the sideline. Yeah.
The goose step, Stephen. The goose step.
The goose step. Yes. Shamani, thank you so much for joining us. Nas, I know your time is precious, and you really answered a lot of my questions because everyone we're wondering what does an old Springbok do, and I can see that you've got so much energy and the stuff that you decided to keep yourself busy with. I mean, just understanding the human mind. I mean, my mind's blown. I mean, I'd probably be on a pier somewhere fishing. That'll be me at 65. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Shamani, is there any outgoing thoughts you want to leave with Nas or anything you want to ask him before we end this call?
I just want to thank Nas for what he's done in life because he's touched so many people's lives. And, you know, Nas, it didn't end with when you left rugby then. You still continue to influence people right around the world, even in the younger generation, as I said to you. My children who speak Afrikaans, actually, they were born in Australia, but my boys speak Afrikaans. They are still being taught on Nas Botha's ways on how to kick a ball. And we appreciate that. And thank you for what you have done for our country. And then even, as I said, for the little ones still coming into the generation and continue to do through your work for the schools. That's really important to help put that into the future generations. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. And thanks for the call. Thanks for the invite, Stephen. I really appreciate it. And thanks, Doctor, for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Lovely to see you again, Nas. And next time I'll see you in Australia.
Thank you.
Okay,
everyone,
good.
have a good day. I'm off
Thank
to
you,
bed.
guys.
Thank you, Nas.
Bye-bye. Bye.